So, Anna, thank you very much for the kind words. Dear colleagues, I'm very happy to be with you today. I'm speaking to you from Germany, where I currently work before I go back to my main duty station in Central Asia, in Tashkent. I am, as I said, very happy to speak to you, and I want to walk you a little bit through, Anna, if you click one slide further, through my presentation. And my presentation, I can't see the next slide. Okay, well, yeah, here we go. Excellent. So this is the agenda. I thought I will not only give you some information on Green Central Asia, but also enlarge this a little bit. I will have an explanation why we all should work on climate change adaptation and mitigation, because there's an urgent need for action. Then I thought, as a German representative, I also explain a little bit on the European Green Deal. What is this and what are the main action points, since Germany is one of the European Union member states. Then I thought it might also be interesting for the Kyrgyz colleagues to look a little bit in available international finance mechanisms when it comes to climate change adaptation, because this is, of course, very straining for each of our state budgets, not only in Central Asia, but also in the European countries. And I thought, since, as I understand, some of you, if not all of you, will be part of the Kyrgyz delegation in Glasgow, I thought some pointers for negotiators would be interesting for you. It's just some minor points. Then, of course, I will explain to you the Green Central Asia Initiative and how we can work together in the next 2.5 years, because your Environment Protection Ministry is also among our partners, and I'm especially grateful to strengthen our relationship. And then I also put together one last slide with more information sources and where you can get them as a background reading. And I'm pretty sure that Anna and Volodya are kind enough of sharing my presentation with you, so you have all the information. I apologize that I have it only in English, and I'm speaking English, but I understand Russian, but my Russian is definitely not good enough to have a proper presentation for you. So I'm very much relying on the interpreters, and I'm already thanking the interpreters for helping me. Next slide, please. Need for action, because in the last years we received alarming figures from the international science community, and you know it very well. So this is just as an introduction. Look at the graphs on the right side, and you see that the carbon dioxide levels have actually risen tremendously over the past 171 years, and we are really coming to levels now that we no longer can ignore. And with the carbon dioxide levels rising, also we have global warming. You also know it very well. In Central Asia, we are feeling it already, and 19 of the hottest years since the last 2,000 years occurred since 2000. So there's an urgent need for action. Next slide, please. In Central Asia, we have water stress. Actually, Central Asia is the second most water stressed region in the world after Northern Africa. For you in Kyrgyzstan, you are of course in a more comfortable position as an upstream country, but nevertheless, the global warming has severe impacts, in particular on your country, with the glaciers melting and with all the dire consequences we have in mountainous regions for this reason. But Central Asia as a whole has a water stress level of 87.9%, which means that we are actually extracting more fresh water in Central Asia for various reasons. In particular, of course, for the agriculture in the downstream countries. And we are extracting more fresh water than we have continuously renewing. Next slide, please. So we are coming to the what I already announced, some words about the European Union Green Deal, because this is something that I'm pretty sure will have also an influence on Central Asia and on your country, the Kyrgyz Republic. The European Union Green Deal actually sets out to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030. This proposal was coming into force on the 14th of July this year. And what actually Europe wants to achieve is a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And the aim, what do we want to achieve with this, is to have fresh air, clean water, healthy soil and biodiversity, to look at renovated energy efficient buildings, healthy and affordable food, more public transport, cleaner energy and cutting edge clean technological innovation, longer lasting products that can also be repaired and recycled. So we should come away from this one time, one use, and then we throw it on the rubbish dump. We want to achieve future-proof jobs and skills training for the transition. And we want a globally competitive and resilient industry. So all these points that the European Union mentioned as their reason for doing this are not only valid for the European Union, but of course they are valid for the whole world, and also for consequently for the Central Asian region. Next slide, please. The EU actually is walking the path to climate neutrality. Climate neutral is the aim to be in 2050. So we have actually a very limited time frame, and we need to do something. So in order to achieve our decarbonization objectives, emissions must be reduced in all sectors, from industry and energy to transport and farming. Climate change is a global threat and can only be addressed globally. For this, we have the UN Framework Convention of Climate Change and its Paris Agreement. And in parallel to mitigation actions, the EU is taking action on climate adaptation to face the unavoidable impacts of climate change. I want to introduce here to 4 action points of the European Union. These are the main action points. There are, of course, more, but for the sake of understanding the main points, I limit myself to the main 4 actions. These are the European Climate Law, the European Climate Pact, the adaptation strategy for the European Union, and climate diplomacy as such. So let's start with the European climate law, which came into force very recently on the 29th of July. And it sets out several objectives. The main objective is that climate neutrality should be reached in a socially fair and cost-efficient manner. I mean, overall, this is the crucial point we are all facing globally, that we have a huge worldwide industrial revolution in front of us, with big consequences for each and every one of us. But this industrial revolution, coming to a zero carbon dioxide emission society on Earth, has to be done in a way that it's socially acceptable to everyone. I mean, we should not leave anybody behind. So we are actually in a quite challenging situation worldwide. The objective is also to create a system for monitoring progress and take further action as needed, and provide predictability for investors and other economic actors. So as I said, we cannot simply cut down on all greenhouse gas emissions and then we have no industry anymore. And however, the law actually wants to ensure that the transition to climate neutrality is irreversible. The key elements of the law are legally binding targets of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And it's the European Union institutions, but all the 25, now that we are missing Great Britain, 25 member states are bound to take necessary measures, also at national level, to meet this target. And the climate law includes measures to keep track of progress and adjust actions accordingly, is based on existing systems such as the governance process for member states, national energy and climate plans, foresees regular reports by the European Environment Agency, and latest scientific evidence on climate change and its impacts. The progress will have to be reviewed every 5 years in line with the global stocktake exercise under the Paris Agreement. So what the European Union actually wants to achieve is to be one of the supporting pillars of the Paris Agreement, with the actions that are taken within the European Union and by the 25 member states. Next slide, please. The climate law actually includes quite a couple of important points. A legal objective for the Union, ambitious 2030 climate target, the recognition of the need to enhance the EU's carbon sink, a process for setting a 2040 climate target. So the idea is to have it step by step, setting higher and more ambitious targets, but in a way that they can be reached, as I said, without endangering the industrial production and thus the well-being of people and of people not losing their jobs. Actually, the law also has a commitment to negative emissions. So this means that less and less emissions are targeted. and a European Scientific Advisory Board on Climate Change will be established. And this is actually something very important also for Central Asia, that we are all supporting to bridge the gap between science and expertise and the political decision making. And I think that you, colleagues from the Ministry of Environment Protection, are going to play a crucial role here, because you are going to be the ones who have to be up to date, keep a close contact with the scientists, and inform your respective political decision makers on what is necessary for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and for adapting and mitigating climate change. There are stronger provisions on adaptation to climate change within it, and a strong coherence across union policies, as well as the preparation of sector-specific roadmaps. In general, this is also something that is valid for everyone globally, the absolute need to work more in a cross-sectoral approach. That means that we cannot only look at environment, but we have to look at agriculture, at industries, at households, and all different sectors of economy, and to closely work together. Next slide. The European Climate Pact is the next action that has been put to life. It's actually a platform, an initiative to connect and share knowledge and to learn about climate change and to present solutions. And this is a tool that should involve population, should involve civil society, make information more known, and help help along a participatory approach to decision making, and to bring people along and to foster their interest. And there's lots of different actions, and that might be interesting also for the representative of civil society here, and you can find more information on the internet. The next point is the EU Adaptation Strategy. The European Parliament endorsed the net zero greenhouse gas emissions objective in its resolution on climate change in March 2019 and resolution on the European Green Deal in January 2020. There are different points in the strategy, but all these points again are streamlined with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. The strategy as such is actually quite short, and you can have a look at the internet. I provided the link. Here, to the point of a regional adaptation strategy for Central Asia, you will hear more a little bit later on when I tell you more about Green Central Asia initiative. But here at this point, suffice it to say that we will see how we can actually align these efforts for Central Asia with the European Union and learn from the European Union, but adapt the points to the specific needs of Central Asia. Last point on the action within the Green Deal is the EU climate diplomacy. The EU here is working to promote ambitious global action through the UN Climate Convention, bilateral relations with non-EU countries. Here, for example, the new EU Central Asia strategy would be an example for this. Policies and initiatives at EU and international level, and finance support to developing countries in their efforts to tackle climate change. For the negotiators among you, I would recommend to look at a couple of relevant documents here. You have the EU Council conclusions on climate diplomacy. You have the Council conclusions on climate finance, the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, and Council conclusions also on water diplomacy, where actually Central Asia is also explicitly mentioned. As I promised you at the beginning, I am also collected some information on how to access finance, climate finance. And here you have several possibilities. You all have heard probably about the Global Environment Facility. Within the Global Environment Facility, you have the Special Climate Change Fund and you have the Least Developed Countries Fund. And you have the Green Climate Fund that was established in 2010, and you have the Adaptation Fund. For the Green Climate Fund, if there is interest within the ministry, we as a program have a contact point in the Green Climate Fund. It's the focal point. He is from Karachi, Pakistan. He's a Russian speaker, and he already said he would be happy to provide you a Russian-speaking extra session on possibilities of accessing the Green Climate Fund for the Kyrgyz Republic. The Adaptation Fund, you might have heard for the first time among the first steps, was accessed for Central Asia by the UNESCO GLOF project on monitoring of glaciers and on developing disaster risk reduction mechanisms in Central Asian countries, among them also the Kyrgyz Republic. The UN Climate Convention website includes a climate finance data portal where you can also find helpful explanations, graphics, and figures. And the links are all given in the presentation. When it is shared, you can check for more detailed information there. As I said, I wanted to give you some pointers for negotiations. I took these actually from colleagues working for a German organization called Climate Transparency. I mean, for the German group within Climate Transparency organization. I myself have never been to negotiations within the Convention on Climate Change, but I took what they told me. You can go through the points yourself. I want to dwell a little bit on the point number 4. Identify a negotiation group that most closely shares your country's interests. And here I want to draw your attention to CACAM. CACAM means Central Asia, Caucasus, Albania, Moldova group. And from Central Asia, so far, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan are in this group. To highlight actually as one of the possibilities, because as what I have heard from colleagues, the negotiations are very, very complicated, and there are thousands of negotiators, and it is very difficult to find your way, especially if you are for the first time participating in one of the COPs. Very interesting and useful, I have been told, is to download the UN climate change app, where you can find agenda points and what will be negotiated. And this also could be one of the possibilities to make your work a bit easier in the conference. I promised you some information sources. Very good information is given in the Climate Transparency Report of 2021. This is came out quite freshly. It gives detailed information on the G20 countries and their climate action, facts and figures based on 100 indicators for adaptation, mitigation, and finance. And also gives good practices and shows certain gaps. Russia, the Russian Federation, is part of this, and this might be a good information also for the Central Asian countries, because you have joint history here, and this might also point you in some direction. Other information sources that I can recommend is the Survival Guide for Negotiators, which gives very practical oriented information for those that are participating in negotiations. Climate Negotiations Terminology, a pocket guide, is also available in the internet. It's also not bad to have this particular jargon absorbed. There is a brief overview of the UN Climate Change Convention Secretariat structure, divisions and subdivisions, which I can highly recommend, because here from the Secretariat you can also get information and support when it comes to negotiations. Interesting is also the NDC registry with all the NDCs and newly done NDCs of countries in the world to give you pointers on what the others are doing. The agenda as such you can also find on the website, and there is a whole chapter on financial and technical support for COP26 in the internet. Even when you please scroll down the presentation one more slide after the climate transparency report. Please scroll down one slide further. Yeah, it's moving, still a little bit more moving. Other direction. Yep, here we go. Here you see what I just said, and then you can click on this and have the information available, and then please scroll one slide further. Then we are coming actually to the Green Central Asia Regional Initiative. So the Green Central Asia Regional Initiative has the goal of initiating a dialogue on climate change and its risk for the Central Asian region. and to support conflict prevention and strengthening transboundary cooperation on climate impacts in Central Asia. And this German initiative is an extension of the Berlin process on transboundary water management support, but also fits into the EU Central Asia strategy, new opportunities for stronger partnership, as well as several points within the UN climate action. In particular, climate and security was named as one of the priority areas of Germany when Germany had between 2019 and 2020 a non-permanent seat in the Security Council in New York. The main idea is to strengthen the resilience of the states and that this dialogue is actually based on scientific findings and that will be made public. So we also want to raise awareness of the public and to contribute to further development with developing further capacities together between German institutions, organizations, and the Central Asian partners. Next slide, please. In this endeavor, we are, as GIZ, not alone. We are cooperating closely with our scientific partners. This is the German Research Center for Geosciences in Potsdam and the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, as well as the German Kazakh University in Almaty, and the Martin Luther University in Halle-Wittenberg, which is working together with the GFZ, the German Research Center for Geosciences. Next slide, please. On the slide that is coming up very soon, I put together, here it is, I tried to put together in a brief way and graphic way what we are intending to do with our Central Asian partners. You see in the middle green Central Asia, and we are working together with the Central Asian governments, with science and civil society, with German and European initiatives, and with international stakeholders. So our partners are the 5 Central Asian republics, and until quite recently, Afghanistan was on board. As you know, due to the latest political developments, we have to wait and see how things develop in Afghanistan. But in principle, we are hopeful to keep them as partners as well. With the Central Asian governments and through them, there's also regional organizations like ICSD, for example, with whom we are also working, and international instruments. In particular, we are partnering up with UNECE and with some of the UNECE conventions. Kyrgyzstan is also, for example, member in the Aarhus Convention and in others. There was an explicit wish from the Central Asian partners to cooperate on the Ramsar Convention on wetlands and Paris Agreement and other international instruments. And here we want to strengthen the role of Central Asia. As international stakeholders, I already mentioned UNECE as a partner organization, but we are also, of course, cooperating and informing each other with the European Union. As I said, the Green Central Asia Initiative is part of and a contribution to the EU Central Asia strategy. But we are also cooperating with SDC, with the Blue Peace initiative of Switzerland, with USAID, and with the financial institutions, with the World Bank, with the ADB, etc. Maybe important is also that within the initiative, we strive to organize in a more comprehensive manner the German initiatives, the German green initiatives in Central Asia. There are several ministries involved in it. Green Central Asia is an initiative by the German Federal Foreign Office, but we are also working very closely with projects and initiatives and actions by the Ministry of, what is it in English, BMZ. This is the Ministry for Economic Development and Economic Cooperation and Development, and the German Ministry of Environment, and the German Ministry of Research and Education. Civil society and science. Here, interesting for you is that through the scientific partners that we have, we also cooperate very closely with the Kyrgyz TSAIAK and with IUCN and with NABU. NABU is a German environment NGO, a big one, and other academies and universities. Next slide, please. We have actually, together with our partners, opted for 3-pillar structure within Green Central Asia. The first one is a regional policy dialogue. We want to have a dialogue on a high level, as was the beginning between the 7 foreign ministers, German foreign minister and his colleagues from the 5 Central Asian countries and Afghanistan. But this is bolstered by national level dialogue workshops on a working level. And there's also a regional working group that we have created, and some of you might be actually part of it. It's the regional working group that put together and elaborated the regional action plan for Green Central Asia. And I want to thank you very much. Kyrgyzstan was the first country to approve the regional action plan. We are waiting now for actually Tajikistan and Kazakhstan. All other countries have also approved. And we hope that very soon we can start working based on this regional action plan. Centerpiece of the policy dialogue is the elaboration of a regional climate change adaptation document. I call it document because you as the partner countries have to decide how you want to call it, concept, strategy, or plan. This is, as I already said, an important contribution to Central Asia and the policy development on climate change adaptation, and is based on the recommendations that were given by the regional action plan, environmental action plan for a sustainable development in Central Asia. So we are not reinventing the wheel, but we are going to support recommendations that have already been elaborated. The second pillar is actually joint regional priorities. Together with the partners, we have opted for the most, I would say, pertinent challenges that we are facing. So this is integrated water resources management and water diplomacy, and several actions we will devise for this priority, as well as land management, in particular biodiversity, desertification and nature protection areas, as well as I already mentioned, international environment instruments. Here, the idea is to strengthen the position of Central Asia in these instruments by also trying to establish a regional group, for example, for the Ramsar Convention, to have the voice of Central Asia heard better. And the fourth priority that we want to look at and develop some capacity building measures and best practices is waste management. And here in particular, the topic of electronic waste and circular economy. When it comes to the third pillar, capacity building, this is what is mainly done by our scientific partner organizations. I only named a couple of things that are organized here. The German Kazakh University organizes a series of called Silk Road Conference. Then we have the Tashkent Water Security Lectures. We have the summer school at the German Kazakh University that is actually organized by all the partners together. We have trainings on already developed tools for forecasting called ModSnow and Eur and GIS that were developed in the Berlin process and that we are developing further and adapting to the needs of the partner countries. If there is a need, I can also tell you more about the capacity building things. And if you are interested, all our activities are announced at our website, greencentralasia.org. And if you are interested, you can register, and but invitation letters will also for each activity come to you. Next slide, please. Here I only brought you some pictures from the Berlin conference. All the foreign ministers were a little bit stiff, but it was actually quite successful. The Berlin Declaration was adopted as the beginning of our joint work. And here you see we were all, of course, surprised by the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of things, or all of the things, were taking place online. And we really hope that next year we can do things in an offline mode again. Next slide, please. I didn't know if there is actually interest in the more practical work that is done by the partner country, by the partner organization. So I thought I'll add some slides. I will not go in detail, but you see what the training and the scientific activities are all about. So you see here, this is about operational monitoring of current climate and water resources in Central Asia. The colleagues, they have devised several databases that are also available for everyone on climate and water resources monitoring in Central Asia. Next slide. They worked, I mentioned the Eur forecasting tool that we have now also developed further in a drought forecast tool. and this is helping on land management and giving information and producing regular bulletins, and is in direct exchange with the UNCCD initiative on drought, where also CAREC, Central Asia Regional Environmental Center, and ICPA are working closely with us together. In the next slide you see, which is actually quite interesting for you as a country with glaciers and with many challenges of glacier melting, that already in the Berlin process, together with the ZAIAC, there were measuring stations created, and they are all working, and they are delivering data on GLOF, on glacier lakes, and on the glacier, the scientific data to monitor this. On the next slide, you see some what I have already mentioned, some pictures of the Tashkent water security lectures on the summer schools that we have done. This year it was online, before it was always offline. And what might also be interesting is that GFZ, as also PIC, are organizing research stays in Germany at their institutes for Central Asian colleagues to further the scientific exchange. On the next slide, you see the input of the PIC. It's probably, it's more or less what I have said already, a little bit more in detail. I don't think it's necessary to walk you through this. If we go 2 slides further, please. If you can move it. Yes, that comes the PIC. And here you see what the PIC in particular is doing, and that is quite interesting. They are doing the latest climate change projections for the region of Central Asia. This data will all be made available and is actually elaborated together with the hydrometeorological services. And they are also working on modeling for river basins in Central Asia, also with the hydrometeorological services. My last slide shows some activities that I also had mentioned before of the German Kazakh University. Just shows you some pictures on what they were doing and what will be done as well. The master program on integrated water resources management will continue. Several summer schools, training on water governance and climate security, and other measures. And with this, I would stop my presentation. I hope it was interesting for you, and I'm very happy to answer all questions that you might have. Thank you very much.